What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We got sports on the docket for today. We're doing the Unwritten Rules of Fighting and Retribution in ice hockey.
That sounds very dramatic.
Well, it can be dramatic at times when we talk
Drop
about
the gloves.
getting into it. And we've done a couple of hockey videos now. We've done some big hits. We've done some big time fights where they're jumping into the audience even. So
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
if you
Shattering
can-
the glass.
jumping into the crowd. So if you guys want to watch those videos, we've got them up on the channel. But we're doing a little more hockey here, and we're coming to this one because we had discussed some of the fighting in the last one.
Yes.
And you were even talking about how are they allowed to even fight?
Yeah.
And I was saying, well, it's kind of like, the unwritten code. And then this video came up called the Unwritten Rules of Fighting. So here we are. And are you ready to learn about why we're allowed to beat the crap out of each other in ice hockey?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, let's find out about these rules.
Nin explains the code. The sport of ice hockey is the only sport on the planet that tolerates fighting and retribution, even though there are rules prohibit doing so. Referees will penalise players for breaking the rules, but sometimes the players take matters into their own hands. There are unwritten rules that govern how players should behave that you won't find in any rulebook. And there are even specific players on hockey teams whose sole job it is to police the game accordingly.
The
These
enforcers.
are the enforcers, otherwise known as goons, tough guys, fighters, cops.
Goons.
And whilst it's their sole job to police the game, the code applies to every player on the ice. These unwritten rules are based on mutual respect for your opponent and protecting your teammates. This is the code.
The code.
The first rule of the code is that they do not talk about the code.
You hate Gary
Whilst
Bettman.
these rules exist amongst players, there is no official record of the rules of the code, except for this video. And you won't find these in any official rulebook. The NHL, or International Ice Hockey Federation, will always officially decline to comment about any code. This is because they don't want to officially admit that their sport that they govern isn't completely under their control. The players police the game as much as the referees do, and sometimes they police
Interesting
it a little too much. Rule number 2. If you do something bad, expect to pay the price. Let's say that you spitefully whack your opponent with a stick, and for some reason, the referees and linesmen completely missed it. No penalty is called against you, and you seemingly get away with it. I guarantee that the other team saw it, and they'll be gunning for you to avenge your crimes. There is now a giant bullseye on your back, with members of the opposing team looking to return the favour, one way or another. And if you manage to avoid punishment until the end of the game, just wait until you play them again. I guarantee they won't have forgotten. Your crime is not transient, and they won't stop headhunting you until you have paid the price. Rule number 3. You do not target stars.
The price is blood. Is one thing I really I used to play. I actually played hockey and soccer growing up. Football, if you're a British or European supporter here.
From that side of the pond.
But I played both growing up, both sports. And one thing that really bothered me about soccer or football is that, I used to play.
Everybody's a bunch of wussies and they fake injuries.
Well, sometimes, not so much in North American football. I would say that sometimes when you get into certain leagues, that's a little bit worse. But what would happen is I would be a striker and people would destroy me. Like, I'm getting ready to accept the ball and the defender will just come right through the back of you. You can't see him coming.
Through, yeah.
You can do your best to protect yourself by keeping your, arms up, elbows up, having a good strong base, whatever. But if they come through like, the back of your knee or your ankle, then Tiffany's going to come and destroy them if you heard our cat meowing. That's what I'm referring to. But, if you're not on the right team and people don't look at that and be like, okay, whoever did that, I'm going to come after them type thing, it's frustrating because you feel like you don't have any defense mechanism, because sometimes the referees are so soft.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, they don't give a card, they don't do anything, they don't even like warn them or nothing, and you like literally just had your ankle cracked. You know, you might not be able to walk the rest of the game or whatever, and you know, it's like, so all for what? For just, you know, one call, you know what I'm saying? But if there's the deterrent of, you know, this guy won't do it to you because he knows that you've got teammates that are going to come and do it to him right back, you know, and that's what I always used to frustrate me, like I said, because defenders in particular would be like, I have fair game, nobody's going to come after me, right? You'd have to kind of do it yourself as a forward, as a striker. You don't get those opportunities as much because you're trying to score, right? They're defending against their net, they're defending the ball, they just have to hammer you. That's what they do, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my rant about
I've been on
soccer.
teams where there's been like full blown like team fist fights on the field. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess
think girls get a little ruthless sometimes, and when it comes to soccer.
I think my opinion is that in North America, for a long time, maybe things have changed, but people didn't understand the game of soccer. And like in England, for example, if you're playing and somebody hammered you that way, it's not they're not getting away with it. Like somebody on your team is going to come and hammer them right back, and that's kind of, I think, the discrepancy where in Canada, if you're playing hockey, you do not target stars. That's what we're about to get into.
Yeah. I think it depends, like you said, also the team culture, right, is a big piece of it. In soccer.
You just mean generally the team and
like your
how they're
relationships.
coached and, for
100%.
sure.
Price. Rule number 3. You do not target stars. The best players on most teams are the star players that score goals and assists. There is an unwritten gentleman's agreement that stipulates that if you don't hit our star players, we won't hit yours. Let the stars score the goals and let everyone else do their respective jobs. Should you unfairly target a star player, expect swift retribution as per rule number 2. Rule number 4. Ignore rule 3 if that star breaks rule 2. Sidney Crosby, a generational player that can score goals at will and will one day be enshrined into the Hockey Hall of Fame. A talent so immense that he doesn't need to dive, take cheap shots or hit anybody when they're down. But he does it anyway. This is totally unacceptable. Once you're a star player that resorts to these tactics, rule number 3 no longer applies, and you'll have a bullseye on your back just like everyone else. Rule number 5. No sucker punches. There is a proper decorum to challenge someone to a fight. However, sucker punching someone, i.e. punching them when they're down or not looking, is an unacceptable way of doing so. This is cowardly, and blindsiding someone like this will result in the opposing team taking note. Expect swift retribution as per rule number 2. Lots of it. Rule number 6. Pick on someone your own size or bigger. Unless they instigate it, it is not acceptable to pick on someone who is significantly smaller than you,
like
especially if they're skilled players that do not fight. The rule is simple. Pick on someone the same size or bigger. Constantly picking on a smaller opponent will result in someone significantly bigger coming after you. Rule number 7. Verbally or physically agree. To challenge someone to a fight, it's important to stand square onto your opponent. Gesture with the hands, the helmet, or start shaking off your gloves. Dropping the stick is a clear indication that you want to throw down. It's fair to bait them physically or verbally, but if you're wearing a cage or full visor, it's proper etiquette to remove that prior to fighting your opponent. Fighting with a half visor may be morally acceptable in some, but not all, leagues. Rule number 8. Don't back down. When challenged to a fight, especially if you have been guilty of a crime committed on the ice, it is seen as cowardly if you do not accept the challenge. Backing down is not cool. You will not receive any brownie points with your teammates and expect some form of retribution sometime during the game, legal or not. Rule number 9. You do not turtle.
No turtling, Samantha.
Once you have engaged in a fight, it is not acceptable to turtle, i.e. curl up in a ball to avoid punches. This is seen as cowardly. You have accepted the challenge to fight, and fight you must. Rule number 10. It is acceptable to premeditate fights.
Just a lot of rules here.
It is deemed courteous to politely ask a player if he wants to fight.
Politely ask.
Exhibit A, Georges Larac.
You want to? Okay. Square up? Okay, good luck, man.
This is the gentlemanly way of instigating a fight, and a fine example of good code etiquette. If a premeditated challenge is accepted, the gloves must come off and helmet visors removed before you fight. Respected enforcers will actually remove their helmets completely and roll up their sleeves. This is to protect their opponent's hands as well as their own. This is the ultimate mark of respect. Rule number 11. You do not...
We're on rule number 11.
There's a lot of these to keep up with.
Let's see, unwritten rules.
I feel like premeditating a fight is weird. Like, don't you do it more because something happened and you're like heated?
Well, yes, a lot of the times, but another aspect could be that you're trying to energize your team. So if you're an enforcer on your team and there's an enforcer on the other team, and your team is not up to speed in terms of the energy levels.
So you're like, hey buddy, want a brawl?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you watched your best friend, I mean, maybe not for you, but for me, if I watched my best friend go into a scrap and he won, I would be amped up and ready to play. I'd be like, damn, he just threw down. Did you see that? And
guys are so weird.
No, it's normal. It's
normal.
Yeah. And also we see how guys have respect for each other, and they say, I'm going to take off my helmet. I'm going to take off my visor. I'm going to drop my gloves. Do you want to fight? All right, let's go.
Roll up the sleeves.
Yeah. And then that's how we deal with our issues, is we handle it for like 2 minutes of physical confrontation, and then it's done. And we're like, okay, you good? I'm good. All right, let's move on. That's it. Ended. Done. Whereas women, as we know, will carry something for like 6 months, a year maybe, and you're still mad about that thing that happened 6 months ago. Why didn't you just tell me? You should have known.
Okay, so now, hey, want a brawl? And we'll just duke it out.
Yeah, we'll give you a little bubble wrap, and then I won't have any bubble wrap, and then we'll make it even. Okay.
No shin kicks.
I don't know about that. We've been watching a lot of UFC, so she's referring to the calf kick, actually. But anyways, so to answer your question, sometimes the fights take place to bring up the energy levels. Sometimes it's, just that these guys got to have a job, right? So
maybe they just got like premeditated beef, like from something that happened last time.
Yeah, but I think it's also like, yeah, it's a part of the game, right? If your guy wins the fights and he's the enforcer, it sets the tone that nobody wants to mess with him either. So therefore, the rest of the team, the opposing team, is like, we don't want anything to do with that guy, so we're not going to do anything stupid by going after our stars, right? So it's all, a lot of it's mentality. It's prefacing what's going to happen the rest of the game too.
This is the ultimate mark of respect. Rule number 11. You do not punch someone lying down. Once the fight has reached the ground, and one or both combatants have hit the ice, you must stop immediately. They are in a defenseless position. It is dishonorable to hit someone when they're down, especially if they can't defend themselves. The punishment and retaliation for breaking this rule is severe. Rule number 12. You do not fight goalies unless you are a goalie or they instigate it. Goalies, like stars, have a job to do, and it doesn't involve fighting. Unless they challenge you and it's obvious that they're doing so, leave them well alone. That said, it is acceptable for both goalies to fight each other, even if no incident has happened between them. Rule number 13. Brawling is fair game. It is perfectly acceptable to retaliate to multiple infractions made by both sides. If every player steps in at once, it's fair game to challenge someone completely unrelated to the original altercation and fight with them. This is to prevent the opposing player from applying damage to your teammates and to temporarily eliminate them from the game by getting them and yourself sent to the penalty box. Rule number 14.
What if the whole team has a penalty?
Pests. A pest is a player whose sole job it is to antagonize and annoy you and your teammates in order to draw penalties. They will resort to anything from verbal abuse to underhand tactics to licking your face. They will most likely challenge you to a fight and then proceed to run away, leaving you with an instigator penalty. Be cautious when you challenge them to a fight, because that's exactly what they want you to do. Rule number 15, the golden rule. You stand up for your teammates, whether it's your job or not. Whether you're an enforcer or not, if you are on the ice and foul play happens, you are expected to stand up for your teammates, regardless of size, weight or star power. These players will stand up for you, through thick and through thin, and it is seen as cowardly to not return the favour. Teammates will notice if you don't have their back, so be wary because one day, it might be you that needs the help. The most interesting thing is that the code is open to interpretation. No two players have the exact same interpretation of the code. But in general, these are the rules that ice hockey players live and die by, even if they're not written down. When regular rules aren't enforced properly, the code dictates how justice is served. In conclusion, there are some amazingly talented players in the sport of ice hockey, and there are people whose job it is to protect them. These men and women have given up being stars themselves, taken lower paychecks, significantly shortened their own careers, and risked their lives and future health, all to protect their teammates when the rules of the game fail to do so. These are noble warriors who will fight with honour and within the unwritten rules of the game. They deserve our absolute respect because they are the enforcers of the code.
So what happens when the whole team
Guys,
gets a
thank you very
penalty
much for-
because everybody just threw down and started a brawl?
I'd missed the first part of your question.
I said, what happens when the whole team needs a penalty because everybody just threw down and started a brawl?
Well, the whole team rarely would get a penalty. I mean, I guess, like you said, if it's a full bench clearing brawl,
Yeah.
then it would depend. Usually they'll pick like the most inflammatory figures in the brawl and give them the penalties.
True.
Because obviously they can't penalize everybody because there would be no game after that. But the rare, very, very rare occasion when it gets really, really bad, they may suspend the game. But that's more, I think that's less in the professional leagues. And that's because it's like they got more of a case to get out of hand in the lower leagues where they take it too far. But these are, even though these guys are like brawling or whatever, they're still professionals. They still know their role. They still don't want to lose their paycheck. They don't want to get fined. They don't want to do all that stuff that is completely unnecessary. So it usually stays within the realm of respect. Respect and honor, as they refer to.
True.
I mean, it is in some respects similar to war in that, like, you have two countries or two sides, right? And they conflict with each other. And, there are certain things that you deem, okay, yeah, we know we're going to war. We know we're battling against each other, but we're not going to use weapons or tactics that are dishonorable, right? And so I think that's probably where it stems from.
Yeah,
is that idea is like, even if you get in a regular fist fight, I'd say most guys at some point have been in a regular fist fight, myself included. And, in those instances, it's like when you hit somebody or you knock them down or they're on the ground, like you don't continue to go at them and like take advantage of them being knocked out. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like, okay, we're done here. I'm moving on. And, that's again, you don't think of it as an honorable thing to do, but it's like I don't know. That's an unwritten rule, as they just said.
Unwritten rules.
So what are your closing thoughts, Samantha, on our unwritten laws of fighting and retribution in ice hockey from a female's perspective?
I mean, I think it makes sense. Obviously, you have to protect your team, and it's going to bring unity to your team, and you're going to trust each other more and, have probably a stronger bond. I mean, the one thing that I feel like is just kind of challenging if it's this unspoken, unwritten thing, like this guy said, it's up to interpretation for new people coming in and different generations and things change, right? So I feel like it might be something that's a little bit challenging for everybody to be on the same page, which can make things sticky sometimes. But I think in general, overall, it kind of makes sense.
I think you're highlighting though why teams and throughout history, it's been important to have veterans.
Yeah.
And even though there may be players that are like getting older in their career that don't offer as much from the athletic or the skill set any further.
Yeah.
But they are still valuable to the team because they can teach them the ways of what needs to be done and how to approach the game, how to carry themselves, what's acceptable, what's not.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, right, like you were talking about soccer and your experience, and I was saying in my experience, like to me, it all depends on the team culture, right? And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to is like, what do you guys tolerate? What do you not? What is the team stand for? What is, like all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all gonna play into that. So
anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed our video here, our third ice hockey. I don't even remember the last time I called it ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Hockey video. Canadians definitely do not call it ice hockey.
Yeah, well, because in Canada, like nobody really plays field hockey, so
It's just hockey. So I hope you enjoyed our video about hockey. That's our third one that we've done. Let us know if you want to see more in the comments below. And we got to go because our cat is got the
sprinting
zoomies.
around.
And she may be knocking over some of our recording equipment in a minute. So we got to go and feed this cat. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks for watching.